Good afternoon, everybody. This is Ask Me Anything, and if there was ever one to share, this is the one because we're going to go through so much information. This is your opportunity to ask questions live about nutrition and holistic health and anything to do with your health, and we're going to answer those questions. We had a lot of questions submitted via email. I'm going to try to get through them as quickly as I can. I tend to speak fast. The good news is you have this great little ability to hit pause and back it up if you need me to slow it down, because I'm going to go fast and get through this for you guys. Over the weekend, I had the great honor and privilege to be assisting in a continued education program with Dr. Scott Verzal, who I affectionately refer to as the Wizard of the West Coast, because he is one of the smartest individuals on the planet when it comes to this. And he would look away and laugh if you said that, because he's so humble and so brilliant. And I'm so lucky to have spent so much time with him, because I always walk away with amazing little gems of wisdom. And so I broke it down into my top 5 takeaways from Dr. Scott Verzal over the weekend in teaching at Parker University, and I'm going to share those with you at the end of this video. It is absolute gold, so I cannot wait to share those with you. But first, I'm going to answer a couple questions, and we're going to get to those. So I tagged Dr. Scott Verzal on this, so if you are watching from the West Coast, anywhere in Southern California, or anywhere that you can get anywhere near his office, and you have some type of concern with your health, he would be one of the very first people I would go see, because he has an unbelievable ability to look through everything and really understand all of the aspects that could be inhibiting your health and all the things that are missing that could be strengthening you. The exact same approach that we're trying to do here is Strong in Health and helping people get stronger all the time. And I have great confidence in his ability to help people. So if you're around him, check him out. Okay, so today we got questions about lupus, we got questions about psoriasis, autoimmune, we got questions about fasting. And in fact, last year when Dr. Verzal came to Dallas and we taught for continuing education, it was about autoimmune. So when we're talking about autoimmune, the very first thing to understand is that there was an entire weekend devoted to all of the different things that you can do about it. And I want you guys to understand that there are many things that you can do, and we're going to try to help outline as many of those for you as possible. And I'm going to start with fasting, because we have a question about fasting, and they want to know if you can use Splenda. Actually, the question is, why can you use Splenda and not stevia during a fast? And first of all, I would say, I hope you just got those switched, because I would never, ever, in good conscience, tell somebody that it's okay to dump Splenda into a human body, because it's chlorinated sugar. It is going to have maltodextrin in it, and there are so many other reasons why sucralose is not going to be something that I personally would be okay with. And if you're doing it, I understand, and there are a lot of things out there and people do, but I'm not ever going to tell somebody you should do that, because it's not something that I would do. So I would say stevia, yes, during a fast. Splenda, no. In fact, never. And in fact, there is going to be a lot of evidence out there that is shown, and I'm not saying just because there is a study that this is absolute truth, but if there is a study, what that means is that we should actually examine to determine whether or not that study has validity and pursue it more. Never just take a study as something that has established truth. Only take a study as something that has set you in the right direction to help you determine whether or not there is more information to examine in that area. But the studies were showing that it was actually increasing insulin resistance and increasing your hemoglobin A1C, which is actually making blood sugar balancing problems worse. So the opposite of what we're trying to go for, and it actually has a negative impact on your microbiome. So for many reasons, I would say definitely not on the Splenda or the sucralose. Now stevia, on the other hand, it has actually been shown in many, many different ways to not impact the blood sugar. And in fact, in several studies, now it's just a beginning of looking in that direction, not saying this is the absolute truth, but it has a positive impact on that, and it does not have the negative impacts that we're looking at. So stevia would be something, so far, we've been able to determine, or I would come to the conclusion that it is not having a negative impact on a fast, as long as it's true stevia, and it's not something that has and not Truvia, because Truvia has other ingredients in it, but actual pure stevia, okay? And now, I think Truvia has changed their formulation, because I remember looking at it originally and they actually included sugar in there, and I didn't see it on there when I recently looked at it, so there might be different versions of it, but just make sure it's actual stevia, as it occurs in nature. That's the most important thing. So, they're asking about fasting, and fasting has been talked about a lot lately, and there's a lot of value in investigating it and understanding it if you're satisfying your micronutrients before going into the fast. Very important thing to remember, because if you have low micronutrients, if you have low potassium, low magnesium, low zinc, low iron, low copper, and then you fast, you can create a worse situation. So always be aware of the fact that you have to be healthier before you start doing these things. But fasting has shown to be very effective. In fact, we've talked about autophagy a lot, and how in 2016 the Medical Nobel Prize went to the recognition of the medical significance of autophagy and what it does for cellular regeneration. And I talk about fasting because I want to share two stories with you when we're talking about autoimmune. Now, I did have a relatively young lady come to me who was struggling with rheumatoid arthritis, and she definitely had the markers. It's definitely a true diagnosis. And she did not want to go the path of what her doctor told her because the medication seemed pretty bad. And so she was asking about dietary reasons and ways that she can improve upon it. Now, somehow, unfortunately for her, but possibly more fortunate, believe it or not, she got a stomach bug. And she wasn't able to eat for 3 days. And so this woman went from eating her regular diet to not eating anything for 3 days. And she went from not being able to move around without tremendous pain, a very low quality of life, and really stiff, all the things that you would associate with rheumatoid arthritis, except on the 3rd day when she woke up pain-free. Now that is an anecdote, okay? It is one isolated situation, but it is enough for you to go, is there something to this fasting? And now that we know that autophagy is something that increases tremendously after fasting, it is something that we have to put into the equation to examine as to whether or not that should be something we should do. Now, a lot of people don't want to do that, and it's not the only answer, but it's something you should think about. Now, I have actually heard or had other individuals working with who had other autoimmune conditions, and the same thing happened with them. So a significant increase in their ability to enjoy life after that fasting and understanding that they have really cleaned out their body. So something to think about. That is not the only thing. So we're talking about today lupus and psoriasis, which are also autoimmune conditions. And the most important thing I want to just start people associating with is, first of all, again, that whole weekend that Dr. Versal, who has really done his research and really done his homework, showing that there's so many things you can do to improve upon these conditions. But I'm going to start with digestion. If anybody has seen the talk that I do called Medicine's Blind Spot and making sure that digestion is working, you really understand there's a massive connection between an inability to digest proteins and proteins getting into the blood and having an autoimmune response to those. So we have to examine digestion if that is the case, and it is information. And one last story that I want to give, because I know I'm getting really short on time already, but I did have a young lady several years ago who wanted to just come in and improve her quality of life, wanted to learn more about what foods are going to be helping her, what foods she should avoid. And she was diagnosed with lupus, and she was on a medication for it. And the medication was to suppress the immune system. And I kept mentioning to her, I said, perhaps there is a way or other ways for your body to get healthy as, we go along. Maybe things will change, you don't know. And she didn't really think about it and believe it. But she did call me a few months ago and said, I went to the doctor and we've been doing all these things to get healthier and make sure that my body's getting stronger. And he said that I don't have lupus, so there must have been a misdiagnosis. And maybe there was. Possibly she was misdiagnosed and put on this drug that was suppressing her immune system for years. So 2 lessons here. Number 1, maybe you got misdiagnosed, because in this case, that was the situation. Or maybe she got stronger and healthy and her body was able to heal itself. When people say there's nothing you can do about it, all that means is there's nothing that they know of, or there's nothing specific that has been discovered yet, or there is no specific protocol that has been approved or set forth that actually gets that result. That does not mean it is not possible. Just because somebody has not discovered it yet does not mean that the body has lost its ability to heal itself. And I know they'll say, well, autoimmune means the body is attacking itself. So the question has to be, well, why? What's causing it to attack itself? What is it attacking? And how do we figure that out and stop adding to that pile so that it is not continuing to attack it? Okay, lots of information on that. All I want to do is encourage you and let you know that there are multiple things you could do. I would start by examining my digestion, and I would definitely start investigating into the power of fasting on that. Okay, and so a great quote from Dr. Versal over the weekend. He said, what I want to do is I want to teach people not what to think, but how to think. And I want to remind everybody of that. That is exactly our goal here. Is we're not telling you what to think, but I want you to start thinking about how you're thinking about these things so that you have an open mind to understand new information and new aspects of it. So my top 5 takeaways from the Dr. Versal weekend are, number 1, vitamin D. One of the most amazing things that I was so excited to learn is he was talking about how he lives in Southern California. I live in Texas. We have tons of sunlight here, and yet we still have this huge amount of people with low vitamin D. And it was more than just not getting vitamin D. There is a metabolic pathway in your liver called the cytochrome P450 pathway. If that is not supported, then there is going to be an inability of your body to be able to help with the vitamin D levels. So if that is somebody out there who's struggling with it, if you're a practitioner out there and you're struggling getting people's vitamin D up, look at the liver function. Look at those things that are going to support the cytochrome P450 pathway. It's very interesting, but just take that for what it is and run with it. But for me, I'm very excited to learn that. Number 2, glyphosate. So glyphosate is something that we are getting exposed to if you're eating commercially raised wheats and corns and things that are getting sprayed with Roundup. And the glyphosate actually has been inhibiting a lot of the liver function. So a lot of times people are looking and thinking that it might be that they're not getting a nutrient, but they're actually having an excess of the glyphosate, and that's more of the problem actually. So be mindful of your exposure to that and understand that that might be an aspect that's hurting you. And specifically, it has been shown to inhibit bile production. Why is that important? We have so many people who are having their gallbladders removed every week. We should really be examining if you're having gallbladder issues, or if you're concerned about your gallbladder, take a look at your diet, see if you're getting exposed to glyphosates. Are you eating commercially raised foods that have been drenched in Roundup? So that might be a key piece to helping your body get back on track and removing that. Number 3, hot flashes. Oh my goodness, so many people asking about hot flashes and so many concerns, and I thought this would have been the most simple, elegant way to help rule out a very simple thing. He mentioned that he sees or has learned of a large correlation between fructose, high levels of fructose, and hot flashes. Now, I'm not going to go into all the details of why, but here's how you apply that. If you're suffering from them and they're not getting better, simple as just avoiding fruit and anything with fructose for like a week. See if they get better. If they get marginally better, if they get significantly better, that's information for you. And that helps you understand that possibly there is something to that. And if so, great. If not, you went a week without fruit. No big deal, right? Okay, number 4, glutamate and sleep. Okay, so glutamate, another chemical that our body is trying to process through the liver. There is a pathway called a sulfation pathway. Very important. We have to get a lot of nutrients to keep that going. But 3 things that really struck me about this. Glutamate is actually a byproduct of neurodegeneration. So when we're worried about brain health, and we're going to be sending out the brain box this month, the Strong and Health box, we should be aware of whether or not we are having excess glutamate exposure. And one of the main ways people are getting that is through monosodium glutamate, MSG, a very commonly added flavor enhancer when you're eating at restaurants. So again, keep that in mind. If you are having some kind of concerns about sleep, perhaps you're getting too much glutamate into your body, because you have to take that glutamate to be able to turn it into GABA, or to metabolize into GABA, which is going to be able to calm you down. Really helpful information. I know this might be getting a little complicated, but for those of you who understand what I'm talking about, this is great stuff. And finally, there were so many other ones I just couldn't decide which one was so good, but I'm gonna leave it here. One of the things he talks about, so many people struggling with inflammation, and in his experience, he suggests that people should examine enzymes as a very powerful anti-inflammatory tool for your body. And he's had some great stories about how that has worked, and that actually goes back to what we were just talking at the beginning. We're talking about inflammatory conditions. We're talking about rheumatoid arthritis. If your stomach acid is low, you don't have a lot of stomach acid and enzymes, you see how these are all just kind of compiling and making this a very complex problem. So using enzymes might be a way to do that. So talk to somebody who knows a little bit more about it, about perhaps looking at helping yourself with enzymes if you're having issues with inflammation. So again, thank you, Dr. Versal, for the brilliant little nuggets you've given us. There's so many others that I would have liked to share, but I find that those were the ones that really impacted me. Thank you, Parker University, for having the space available for the education, and thank you, Standard Process of North Texas, for setting up such a great event. Okay, Any questions live? Okay, I know this was a lot of information, but if you take nothing away from this, just take away the fact that there's so many things that you can do to improve your health. And the more you learn about how your body works, the better you're going to be at keeping those things in your life that are going to make you stronger and healthier, and removing those things from your life that are going to be slowing you down that you didn't even realize were in the equation in the first place. All right, guys, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful. If you have more questions on this and you need me to clarify or expand on some of these, please go ahead and email us at info@strongandhealth or type it in there. We will get these questions not this Thursday. We're going to be missing a week as I will be out in the East Coast this week. But next Tuesday, we'll be back here answering all of your questions again. Thanks for watching. Have a great week and stay strong.